What a few days in politics. The government stops 33 pay equity claims affecting thousands of female workers. So what's the fallout? I'll give you some new detail there. And a poll shows it's close between the two blocks. What's going on? And Te Pati Māori leaks confidential information, then says sorry, and then fingers someone else in the party. They are the gift that keeps on giving. Stuart Nash and Maurice Williamson will join me shortly. Welcome to the program.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan, Garner.
Okay, you're with the Editor-in-Chief. Good evening, everybody. I'm Duncan, Garner, and welcome. Like we always do, please subscribe. Really appreciate that. Subscribe to the podcast, and that helps us. Stu Nash and Maurice Williamson will join me shortly for a panel chat, but a poll out this week shows how close it is between the two blocks. National, 34.6%. They're up 1.1 percentage points. That gives them 42 seats. Labour, 33.2%, up 3.4. That gives them 41 seats. So the two main parties head-to-head, really close. And what damage will National's moves to shut down pay equity claims mean for them, and will there be a backlash? I'll have some fresh information for you in our panel on this. So let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Yeah, the links to Pāti Māori co-leader Debbie Ngarewa-Packer is now going to backtrack over the leaking of the highly confidential Privileges Committee report is truly astonishing. She's even willing to throw a junior no-name staff member under the bus for mistakenly releasing it via an Instagram post. There's nothing mistakenly about this. I simply do not believe her, and she's making this up now to protect herself and the other two MPs from getting a serious penalty and punishment handed out. That's coming, isn't it? Maybe it's suddenly dawning on her that the game is up and she and her other MPs have behaved like petulant children, like bloody idiots, and they've been, quite frankly, obnoxious and seriously can no longer defend and justify their behaviour. They haven't been able to all along. There is simply no way a Te Pati Māori staff member would have access to such a report, and if they did, they should never have seen it, let alone make a post. They don't. It simply doesn't stack up. But staff don't go off and do these sorts of things off their own bat at Parliament. Staff members at Parliament never do something like this without the direct instruction or approval of their MP. It just doesn't happen. If anything like this happens, it's under the watchful eye of the senior leadership of the party. They instruct it or don't. Stop lying, Debbie. It's making it worse. To make this really clear, you're in the shit, so stop digging. It's simple as that. Ngarewa-Packer said the Instagram post was a mistake made internally and the party was reviewing it. She says, quote, "We were aware that an Instagram put up last night created a little bit of tension for the chair of the Privileges Committee." Little bit of tension? Even that's patronising. Come on. She said no MP, including the co-leaders, were responsible for the Instagram posts. Oh, yeah. Sometimes I find the cover-up worse than the crime, to be honest. And here we go again. What if the committee now decides to call the staff member you say who did it? And they sack that person who can't work again in this country. See what you've done here? People are now talking about a month-long ban from Parliament for these three Māori Party MPs. Now, that would be unprecedented in our political history. A 4-week ban. And two of them, of the MPs, are the co-leaders of the party. Their behaviour has been reprehensible, their approach indefensible, and their credibility is in tatters. And they've lost the respect of MPs across the board. Only the wacko Greens have really stood by them, but even that looks a bit weak now. The country is horrified by you. It is clear Te Pati Māori holds Parliament in contempt. Not just with the daily rules, but their entire approach to the place. Why they stood for office is beyond me. Can you name one thing that they've won or achieved for Māori voters in the Parliament? They're a deluded, inward-looking vanity project on steroids. Locked inside their own echo chamber with mirror tiles on the walls, and all they can see is defiant brilliance, isn't it? The rest of the country is looking at these guys shaking their head. Or pointing their finger, and they can't stop laughing. And now the country hopes the Privileges Committee dishes out a ban that thumps this party in the face. Sits them on their arse and sits them there for quite some time. The truth is this lot needs a decent dose of humility. Humble yourselves. There's nothing worse than stinking arrogance, and it's worse when you are so arrogant as you to behave so badly. It's the sort of behaviour we see from society's misfits and imbeciles in the court as they go down for years. That we all look at them and go, what are you idiots? The Māori parties prove themselves to be poor role models for the young ones who follow their party. And protest is fine, but they've taken protest to a whole new level, downwards, and I urge their followers, if they think this is staunch and cool and to be repeated, then I think you're sadly wrong. Te Pati Māori thinks the rules don't apply to them. Simple as that. No matter what the decision is of the Privileges Committee, they will claim it's racist and unfair. They need to humble themselves. They've made a mockery of all this, and they've treated it like a joke. And they've treated it like something they can milk for their own PR. There's talk of a 28-day ban. I'd make it much longer. I'll stand my ground about why. The public of this country are fed up. They want a message sent to this party, and the punishment handed out must be severe and a deterrent to others. If you try and, screw Parliament like this, and then the rules must apply and they must be held, like a fire against you. Try this sort of nonsense on a marae and I'm sure you get a lifelong ban and probably something more instant as well. You can probably guess what I mean there. I also want to say that mainstream media has gone light, I reckon, on Te Pati Māori during the saga. In days gone by, it would have been an old-fashioned pile-up. Why the mainstream media think it's their job to go lightly on such a party showing idiotic behaviour is beyond me. And now Radio New Zealand has turned off public comments on stories about Te Pati Māori on their website. And in effect, it's shielding them. Why are they doing this? Why shut off the voices of New Zealanders who wish to have a view? It's been noticed. Why isn't Radio New Zealand's Media Watch program, led by Colin Peacock, turning the spotlight on his own organisation? Why is he shielding them on this? It's not racist to do your job properly, and it's little wonder that the public have lost faith in the media.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, right, time to turn to my panel now. Big week, of course. The pay equity moves from National, which came out of the blue. ACT has claimed it saved the budget, and this has all been rushed through. And how will women react? We'll have some fresh information on this shortly. The poll that's been out this week shows it's really close, 63 to 58 to National, so we'll look at that. And Te Pati Māori, as I've just pointed out, is the gift that keeps on giving. All right, we're joined now by Stuart Nash, former Labour Minister and former National Party Minister, Maurice Williamson. Guys, nice to have you on. Thanks so much.
Good to be here.
Maurice, I might kick things off with you. Te Pati Māori, they leaked the Privileges Committee report, which, as you know, as we all know, is a big no-no. Now they've gone back and said, that was a mistake, throwing someone under the bus from their party. They're not telling the truth. It goes from bad to worse, doesn't it?
It does, and I go back to the original statement I think I made to you about the refusal to even attend in the first place. If you think of any other organisation, let's say the rugby league, and a player had infringed badly or punched someone on the field and had been sent to the judiciary, if they just said, well, I'm not going, guess what would be their future in the rugby league?
Banned.
They'd be gone. Gone. Banned and gone. These guys have got their own rules, and somehow we let them. I mean, I'm really disappointed in Jerry Brownlee. He seems to just sort of let them away with things that none of the rest of us would get away with. And this idea of leaking the stuff and then saying, it's just a slip up or it shouldn't have happened or whatever. In the end, they either are going to participate under Parliament's rules, what are set and you know what they are, or they're not. And last thing I want to do is this. The biggest transgression they made, most people keep missing it. It wasn't they came down on the floor and did a haka, or in my view, one of the worst things would go face to face with David Seymour and point like a finger as a gun. The thing they did is he did all that while a vote was being taken. And Stuart will know that the rules are so clear. You are not allowed to say anything or do anything during a vote because that can be interpreted as intimidation of people. You'll lose your seat if you vote this way and so on. So there's absolutely watertight rule. Must be silence. Everyone must stay quiet while the whips record the vote with the clerk. These guys came down and did all that while the vote was still in place. Anyone else of us would have been thrown out for it.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah, Stu, I think Maurice makes an excellent point. It's contempt of court. If you go into court and do this in front of a judge, you will not be looked after. You won't get as much runway as these guys have had. It's contempt, and there's only one answer for this. They need to be banned.
It's contempt is the technical word. I think it's bloody outrageous. I really do. And they say, this is colonialisation, all this, Karen. No, it's not. It's the rules. They're not being persecuted in any way, shape or form. They're being, we're having a real go at them because they are breaking the fundamental rules that keeps Parliament sane and orderly, etc., etc. As Maurice said, if Maurice or I had done this in our time, we would have been thrown out, we would have been named, we would have been docked our pay, and that would have been the end of it. And I am really, really surprised that Jerry hasn't taken a very, very hard line on it. And I can't imagine an MP from a main party that isn't urging Jerry to go hard, enforce the rules, and be tough. I've said this before, Doug. If you're in the debating chamber and you look around the walls, there are plaques, carved wooden plaques of the battles that the men of New Zealand and women fought in the wars to maintain our democracy. Yeah. And these guys are making a mockery of it. It started with Trevor Mallard when he said you don't have to wear a tie and look decent. Rawiri looks like he's turning up to a Hawaiian bloody fancy dress party. I think that's a disgrace, quite frankly. I think some of the stuff that brings in there is a disgrace. I never went into that chamber without wearing a tie. You don't wear a tie often these days, but you've got to treat Parliament with dignity and respect, because if you don't, what ends up happening is people become disenfranchised. MPs right across the spectrum become more and more disrespected, and democracy is eroded.
But
Jerry
if you guys did
come
that,
down on these guys incredibly hard.
I agree entirely. But if you guys did that, your party would come in over the top anyway and put you into line. You got whips and everything. But the problem here is, and here it is. Here's the crux of this, Maurice. It's the co-leadership of the party. It's not the bottom end. It's the top end. They're setting the pace.
But I mean, Stuart made a point about colonisation. It makes me absolutely bloody laugh my head off. They show up in cowboy hats and bowler hats, all sort of that dreadful bloody colonisation that's forced them. I mean, some of them look like an unmade bed. It is just appalling. There's people in that house that you wouldn't normally find them in the park on a park bench on a Sunday morning after a wild party. And that's how they're allowed to show up in what should be a place. Now, I actually have to confess, I once got thrown out of Parliament, only ever once, ever, and that was because I didn't wear a tie on Wellington's Tieless Day. They had a big function. I went to the Rotary Club for a lunch. It was Wellington's Tieless Day. It was promoted to make sure we were really cool. And they said, get with the program. So I'm about to give my speech, rip my tie off, put it on the chair behind me, did my speech. Secretary's tapping me. You've got question number 1 in the House. We need to get you back. Jumped in the old LTD in those days, shot back to Parliament, raced in. Next thing, Jonathan Hunt says to Sir Robin Gray, Minister of Transport's not wearing a tie. I looked down, oh, shit, I've left it downtown. And Robin Gray just went feral. The member will leave the chamber. I said, sir, it's Wellington's Tieless Day. The member will leave or I will name him. I said, but I don't have it. Get out. And I said, this will go down as an orchestrated litany of ties.
But this is the thing. If you start to loosen standards, Stu, like Maurice has just explained, if you loosen standards, then you'll get bad behaviour. That's what happens.
Mate, I'll go back to the point I've made numerous times. When Jeanette Fitzsimons and Rod Donald came into Parliament, they did so because they believed that they could make a greater difference for their movement working within the system. And they played within the rules. And I would argue that the Green Party of old actually held governments to account in a way that made a difference. But they recognise you work within the system, you can get stuff done. These guys are within the system but trying to work without it by pushing the rules far too far. I don't think they're doing the cause much of a favour at all with good, hard-working Kiwis who would listen if there was a cogent argument. It's about respect, it's about dignity, it's about integrity, and I am very, very concerned that the actions of the Maori Party are lessening all three of those.
What would you do, Maurice, to ban them? Would you do a 28-day ban?
Let me pick up on that. You talk about Jeanette Fitzsimons and Rod Donald, and I absolutely agree with you. They were absolutely focused on the environment and trying to get better outcomes for the planet, and did it in a really decent manner, but forceful. But how about Te Pati Māori? The ones that used to be there, people like Peter Sharples and Tariana Turia, I worked with them in cabinet committees and so on. They were absolutely fantastic at trying to get outcomes. They always showed up. Peter Sharples always had a suit and tie. He always asked for papers that he could get some work done on and so on. It was phenomenal. He didn't even need to be part of the government, but John Key brought them in. That's the same party that now looks just, well, it's a disgrace. And I think the disgrace lies more with those people that are letting them get away with it.
Howard, so Judith Collins and the committee now have to make a decision on what sort of punishment is handed out. There's talk of a 28-day ban from Parliament, which will be unprecedented, and it's pretty significant. What would you do, Stu?
I'd ban them. I mean, that sort of punishment would be unprecedented, but I think the action and the contempt they are showing for Parliament is also unprecedented. You would not have seen, we've never seen this before. And as Maurice said, he got thrown out for not wearing a tie. Yeah. What these guys have done is 5 levels more egregious than this. Throw them out, teach them a lesson. If they want to get stuff done for their people, if they want to get changes made for their constituents, work within the system, and other parties have shown it is possible.
Yep.
You do not drive change by spending all your time, effort, and energy fighting the system.
Yep.
Ban them, and teach them a lesson. And if they want to behave, if they want to come back, and if they want to be constructive, then they're welcome. But this sort of behaviour is unacceptable.
Yeah, that's what I think. There's one more important thing with whatever the measure is. Ban them, I think, 28 days or whatever they choose. But I tell you what you then say. You're on your last warning. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This sort of behaviour, again, of any nature that goes this far beyond what is the rules, and you're gone altogether.
Mm.
Yep.
Because they will come back next time with another one, and it'll be all on, it'll be news, and it'll occupy the Privileges Committee, and we'll be on bloody talkbacks talking about it, and they are just laughing at us. And what they've got to say to them is, this behaviour is unacceptable, here's your punishment, but you're on final notice.
You know, if you look, I agree with you guys. If you look at the polls, the latest poll, she's pretty close, 63-58 as a block. I mean, the Māori Party might argue that their vote's holding up, Maurice. Their vote's holding up, all this antics, and, they've still got people voting for them. They might say, because it is close. Can you believe it? Look at the state of the left, and they're doing quite well.
Well, there will always be a group of people associated with political parties because of that's their political party.
Yeah.
You know, Stu will know a lot of people in the Labour Party that have voted Labour because they've always been Labour and their family have been Labour and so on. And there'll be National Party people who, I couldn't vote for anybody but the National Party, whatever. There'll be people in the Māori population who feel that that's the only representation they can have. So I don't take too much about where they lie because it's a couple of percentage points up or down or whatever. What I think's the more important part of that whole debate is you cannot elect a Labour government if they're going to be reliant on that lot for supply and confidence. You just can't. So if Hipkins wants to do something really radical, do what John Key did when it was about Winston Peters, rule them out. Just say, I will not form a government with that lot.
I don't think that's radical at all. I think that is political pragmatism. I mean, I've been urging him to rule out working with the Māori Party at all because I'm 100% with you. If people think that the Māori Party are going to get their hands on the social and economic policies of power, then they will not vote for the left. It is the greatest threat to a Labour-led government that's out there, and they're polling at 3%. If Hipkins wants to entertain them, good luck to him. But it won't get him into power being associated with the Māori Party.
Yeah, I agree. No, it was really clear. And lastly, the National Party have this week, and Maurice, I'll bring you on this, taken away those pay equity claims. So they've cancelled them effectively and said they can start again under a different formula. 33 pay equity claims that were in front of them. Probably worth up to $2 billion plus billions into the future. It's brave stuff just before the budget, but I suppose ACTA now saying they've saved the budget. What's your take on it?
I've sort of got two different views. I mean, first of all, I think the old pay equity rules were so loose when the government changed them to allow. I've got some of the comparators. Then these are out of actual claims before the tribunals or whatever they put them now. Health New Zealand admin and clerical staff have an equivalence with mechanical engineers. The Health New Zealand librarians are putting a comparator of transport engineers. And my favourite of all is Oranga Tamariki social workers are equating themselves to air traffic controllers. So that's the lunacy of this. How do you get that equivalence? Now, what Brooke Van Velden is doing, which I think is right, is to say your comparator's got to be something within your industry or close to your industry or within the company, and not say, well, I drive a car, so I should be equated to a Formula One driver. I mean, it's insane. But I don't think they've handled it well, and I think the surprise, urgency, and then I think David Seymour really put them in the poo by saying, "Oh, we've saved a budget, and without us, she couldn't have put a budget together." That just looks now that it's being done for all the wrong reasons.
Yes, yeah. If you stuck to, well said, Maurice, Stu, if you stuck to those first reasons that this law doesn't appear actually to be right, we want to realign it. That's actually legitimate. But going and squeezing it in under urgency, there's not much urgency held these days on much. So, it draws your attention for all the wrong reasons, as Maurice said. It looks sneaky. Or maybe the other side of that is just do it like Trump did. Whack it through and get on with it so there's no fallout.
Yeah, but when you're going to do something like this, and Maurice is right, when you're going to do something like this, something that will be controversial, what you have got to have is a very smart, very, very good comm strategy. So the first thing you hear is air traffic controllers. Maurice, that's the first time I've heard those comparators.
Yeah.
Yes.
All I have heard, and I follow the media as much as most, maybe a little bit more than some. All I have heard is this is about saving the budget. You take that a step further. So what a lot of women have heard is, okay, we'd rather have tanks, guns, ships and planes than pay women what they're worth.
Yeah.
So, well done on fucking off 50% of the population, but that is not a recipe for winning an election. I think this has been very, very amateur.
Yeah.
And as Maurice said, or you said, sorry, David Seymour really stuffed this up by saying, there you go, we've saved the budget.
Yeah.
So women now believe that it is more important for us to arm our soldiers than it is to pay them the same rates as men.
Yeah, whereas Maurice has got it right.
Disaster, let alone a political
exactly,
stuff-up.
but with Maurice has got it right.
When you're doing something that's got the controversy that was always going to be attached to this, always going to be, you have to do what politicians call tilling the soil. You've got to prepare the ground. You've got to get people to understand, A, what the problem is you're trying to solve, then talk about what a rational decision looks like to fix it, and try to bring people with you. But when you sort of come out of nowhere, and then when David Seymour said what he said, and then in the House yesterday, Nicola Willis, the Minister of Finance, says, David Seymour was only saying that as leader of the ACT Party. He wasn't saying it as an associate finance minister. That's what she said.
Too late. I mean, who believes that? There's no difference,
mate. My 22-year-old daughter and my 39-year-old wife are completely up in arms about this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
completely up in arms.
But they haven't heard. They haven't heard what Maurice has said, which is the. If you look at these, if you look at the differences and what they try to compare themselves to, that's actually a good argument. Now, if that was the sole tilling of the soil that the National Party put out there, then the country might understand it better. But they've allowed this thing to be hijacked by everyone else, and it's not in their favour.
Well, it just looks cold. It looks out of nowhere. Why urgency? Why not say? I mean, one of the other messages they needed to get out about the 33 they've cancelled is that nearly all the work that's been put into those will still be able to carry it on into the new regime, because we're hearing it's all been a waste of time and they spent 3 years working on it and it's all gone. But none of those important messages got through.
True.
Then it looks like desperate budget time because it's only a week away or whatever, and we've got to get it done. If you ever had to sit down and write a blueprint for how not to do policy, this would be what you used for your example.
And let me say something, this goes to the wider issue of the competency of the Prime Minister's office. This would never have happened under Helen Clark or Heather Simpson or John Key and Wayne Eagleson.
Absolutely.
And I am astounded, because this would have gone through the Prime Minister's office. I'm astounded that his media and comms people didn't say, hey, hold a sec, let's, as Maurice said, till the soil, let's get it out there. This is the comm strategy. These are the lines we're going to use.
Yes.
No one has to go outside these lines when you're giving speeches, when you're talking to the media. But none of that happened at all. It seems a little ad hoc. David Seymour's made it a hell of a lot worse. That cuts to the core of the competency of Chris Luxon's office, I'm afraid.
I think that's bang on, Stu. And I've been in this zone for some time now, because I've seen a number of these things happen, and I thought, how did that get out? Even under the old Nats days when Maurice was there, they would have nailed that. They would have nailed the headline stuff to go out there. But this is amateur. I haven't seen it like this ever. This bad, no. A PM's office this bad, this weak, and this with the eye off the ball so much.
I literally would. You see, the only time you can justify urgency that day, no notice to anybody, even the backbench didn't know about it till that day. The only way you can do that is if it's going to have an implication for the markets. Yeah. Like if you're putting a fuel, I did a few things like fuel excise changing. You can't announce in 3 weeks we're going to put a diesel tax up, because then everyone would go and buy millions of litres of bloody diesel in advance and so on. So there are some times when you can justify that day, the parliamentary clock stays on that day till the legislation's over and it was effective. But where's the have to do it today stuff? Yeah. You could have said, this is something that needs quite a good debate. We'll have a short and select committee. And the only reason there's only one reason you can come up with it is they needed to have it done and dusted so it could be incorporated in lower numbers for the budget. Yeah, and I think you're right. Which then is really sniffy, and it gets everyone's hackles up, and they think, and all the women are looking over going like this. Hang on, because no one's heard that message, Maurice. That it actually is. I agree. It's almost, and I mean, remember, Stu had it, but I actually hadn't thought about it. But you want to buy bullets and guns and ships and helicopters rather than pay women. That's how it's interpreted. Yeah, it's not a bad line. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there, guys. You've nailed it. Brilliant. Always appreciate your time. Let me just say, my ghast is completely flabbered. Okay, guys. Hey, I'll do it next time, mate. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks, Maurice. Cheers, Dave.
Bye. Cheers,
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Yep, always good for a chat, those guys. And Maurice bringing that information there clears it up a little bit as well. Makes it, why isn't the media putting that out there? Anyway, Christchurch producer Isaac, we got a bit of feedback, brother?
Yes, we do indeed. I'll start with a couple of comments. Just from your slam dunk a couple of days ago, or one of your slam dunks a couple of days ago, when it was first realised that Te Pati Māori, or some members of Te Pati Māori had leaked the Privileges Committee's decision into the public, which they shouldn't have done. And this obviously before they backtracked and said, oh, it wasn't us, it was somebody else. But anyway, a couple of comments on this video. Gary Stodden says, with people like this in Parliament, New Zealand's out of control debt and almost zero possibility of New Zealand's economy growing at a level to earn its way out from it in decades, the best thing any young Kiwi can do now is to move overseas. Go to Aussie or Europe, almost anywhere. It's going to take very harsh and radical change to pull New Zealand out of its nosedive. Yeah,
it feels a bit like that, doesn't it? It really does, doesn't it? The more feedback we get, the more we do. It feels like she's a big grey cloud over us. Anyway, yeah.
This one here from doesn't have a name actually. I've never seen that before. Anyway, Debbie Ngarewa-Packer hauls in 181,000 per year plus expenses. I haven't fact checked that, so take that with a grain of salt, but who knows? Yeah, to stomp around Parliament like it's her personal stage, breaking rules, dodging accountability, and gaslighting the public under the banner of cultural immunity. This isn't public service, it's a taxpayer-funded ego trip. While real Kiwis ration groceries and power bills, she feasts at the trough. Disgrace doesn't even begin to cover it.
Yeah, so true. It's so true. Well, you know, I spoke to this crowd yesterday as well, and they were so adamant. You know, older people, especially in New Zealand, they got manners. You know, manners. It sort of matters to them, and the way they're dancing around on this platform, yeah, it's not good. Not good anymore. That's us.
No, there's a couple more I can read out.
Yeah,
this one here from Sean. Those punishments are so pathetic. They never show up anyway, so how does a 7-day punishment from Parliament hurt them? Get some balls, Lux, and ban them. 3 months, no pay.
Yeah, I'm into the 3-month thing too. Yeah, because you can't have this happen again. So you got to send a real deterrent. Hey, you guys want to F with us, mate? We'll F with you. You know.
Yeah, and it's not a bad point when they don't turn up anyway. What's banning them going to do?
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Yeah, good feedback, mate. Good feedback. That is us. Thank you for your feedback and your support. Get in touch through our social media at Duncan Garner Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, or flick us an email, duncan@rover.nz. To my team, brother like no other. Thank you, mate. Awesome. Thank you, mate. We'll do it again. Enjoy the rest of your evening and into the weekend. Remember, life's no dress rehearsal. There's no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth. So get out and enjoy it. Make the most of it. Shit weather, but we'll be all right. Have a great day and great rest of the evening. Take care, New Zealand. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.